Hi, in this video I'd like to talk about audio devices such as onboard audio and sound cards. I'd also like to talk about the software that can go along with the drivers if you happen to install them, such as the Realtek Audio Console right here. We'll go over that in just a moment and talk about what each one of these do and why you would want to enable them, as you can see that I have here. So let's get on with the video. We'll be dealing with onboard audio, okay? And if I talk about sound cards, or I mention sound cards, I'm still ultimately thinking and talking about audio out. You know, whether it's onboard audio or a sound card, I might switch back and forth between the two, but that's pretty much what we're getting at, okay? Such as these here, you'll see one is PCI and the other two are PCIe. So you have 7.1 and 5.1 sound cards here. When I mention outputs, I'm talking about the green port, your line out or your audio out, or if you have a 5.1 or 7.1 with multiple outputs, right? Otherwise, I'm specifically talking about jacks at the back of the motherboard or the sound card, such as these here with your pink mic in, green line out or audio out, and blue line in. As you see here with your basic onboard audio having 3 ports. And this one here is a 5.1 audio device. Green again is your audio out, pink mic in, blue line out. The yellow one I believe might be bass out. The black one is your center channel, and the gray one is your rear right and left audio out. Now, that being said, the black and the orange could be swapped. Either which way, that's pretty much what you're looking at there. Okay. There's some gaming motherboards where they're slightly different. For example, on mine, the main audio out for front speakers is red. So let's get on to the software now. And if you hung out this long, I appreciate it. Now, moving over to the speakers. You have a speaker configuration, which is stereo, quadraphonic, 5.1 or 7.1, so surround sound, or just 4. 5.1. Sometimes in this case, your center or your bass box could be swapped on the back of the ports here, depending on the motherboard or configuration. See right here, swap center subwoofer output. Okay. Also 7.1 similar. Alright. Moving on to the next panel, we have the sound effects, and in here, initially, when Windows reset my sounds, loudness equalization was off. This was set to none, and this was also set to none or flat. So the way I usually keep it is loudness equalization enabled. I set the environment to living room, and I set the equalizer to live. Room correction is meant for surround sound speakers and is designed to be set up in such a way of where the speakers are set in relation to where you are sitting, how far off to the side of the room, how close they are in front of you, and things like that. And as you see here, it's disabled because I'm only using 2 speakers. The default format is set here for your bitrate quality. Okay, and this shows you your back panel ports. So that's what those panels do, and similar for here, except again I'm not using this connector. Alright. Now what I'd like to do is show you the difference of what it sounds like with loudness equalization on and off, and also the differences in the sounds when these environments and equalizers are enabled. We're probably going to have to switch to the camera on my phone and record the sound coming through my speakers so that you can hear what I can hear. On the speakers tab is where we are. You have virtual surround, which you might consider to use if you had headphones plugged into your speakers. Let's go back to the sound effects. This is where all the changes happen that I have previously set, but once I updated from Windows 10 to Windows 11, a lot of these things were all disabled, and that's because this software is connected to the Windows sound environment as well, and we can look at all that later. This just gives you more of a graphical interface and a little bit more to use. There's a bit more functionality. Now, as you see here, the environment is set to none. Loudness equalization is off. And all these are like quick shortcuts to different environments. Like you have the sewer pipe, bathroom, an arena, stone room, and an auditorium. Down here, you have the equalizer. And of course, again, shortcuts, right? Pop, live, club, and rock. And keep moving on. I want you to hear the difference now, because one of the bigger things that I had noticed a difference of was that when I was watching videos, it sounded quiet, where right now my volume is set to 30, okay? Normally, that's really where I have it. I have that set to 30, and I'll have the speaker sound at 50%, okay? But when I was watching videos on like Hulu or YouTube or whatever, they just sounded quiet. They didn't sound quite the same as they used to. That was what this made a change in. One of the things you want to have turned on is loudness equalization. You will notice a difference in the sound quality. Well, maybe not. Maybe quality is not quite the word I'm looking for. Clarity, a bit more volume, yes, but it's like more volume without having to have the volume turned up as loud. That's the best way that I can explain it. Okay, let's move on to environments now. As you can see here, and I'm going to just use the quick ones because there's actually a whole lot. And we're not going to go through all of them. You could do that on your own. Now, this is one of the things where I do find, this software to be a little bit more intuitive than like using this kind of drop down thing that you can find in the Windows sound options, and we'll get to those later. All right, so here we go. I'm going to play a little bit from the GN channel here.
Thanks, Steve.
AMD's recent revival with its Wraith and Aspire class stock coolers saw a return to Cooler Master for manufacturing. And as part of our recent trip to Shenzhen and Dongguan, we visited the Cooler Master factories responsible for making those AMD coolers. Today we'll be following an AMD cooler through the process of assembly, and we'll be looking at some of the machines used to manufacture the different parts of an AMD stock cooler. If you've enjoyed our factory tours, the absolute best way to make sure we can continue to afford these expensive...
So as you can tell, a lot of those were just echoey, right? I find that those work best while gaming in certain particular games and not all of them. That being said, the environment that I tend to use as my quote-unquote default environment is, what I recall, is room. Now, it's either room or bedroom because there's also a difference in the loudness between room and living room. One of these two is louder. And to be honest with you, I feel like room was louder than living room, which makes no sense to me. Because you would think it would be the other way around, that, living room would be further away from people's bedrooms. I also believe that these environments are much more noticeable, the differences in them, when this is on and when this is not. All right, so yes, there is a way of doing some of these things without having this software installed. I just prefer to have it. Go and take a quick look at the Windows side of things. All right, well, now that we're back to OBS, and we already talked about these settings here within the console. Now, a few things to note. is that one, if you right click on it, you'll go to sound settings, which is this here. Okay. And this is useful for monitoring your mic, for example, as you see here. Okay. Go ahead and minimize that in a minute. But if you just click on it regularly, what you'll get is your volume slider. Now this is also Windows 11, by the way. Windows 10, it looks slightly different, but close enough. The other thing is if you click here, this gives you the option of selecting what's going to be your output. Right now, I have it set to speakers. These here are the monitors. Further down, you have the ability to set spatial sound. Now, the volume mixer is something else, where you'll see here, this is the system sounds, like your dings and whatever, right? Here's Mozilla, because it's open with YouTube sitting on the page. You have how loud the browser itself is, which is separate from the volume of the main volume, meaning this. Going back to what I was saying, when you click on this and you scroll down further, you hit the mixer. As you can see here, the browser is set to 50%. Could turn it up louder, and then of course the browser, what you're listening to, would come out louder, which actually can be important when you want to make sure that certain things are louder than others or not louder than others. For example, I tend to set the system sounds down pretty low because I don't want them to be loud, especially if I have headphones on. Alright, under more advanced settings is when it brings up this. This is what we were talking about initially. And here, under more sound settings, you'll find the list of your components that have sound output, what's active and what is not. Deactive is what's not in use. For example, right now my JBL headphones are disconnected, and my monitor headphones that are connected to my mic, those are these right here. These are my speakers out. And under this, you can configure similarly to this, where you can configure what kind of speaker setup you have. Over here, you can do the same thing when you configure what kind of speakers you have. The other thing that you can do with the speakers here is under the properties, you'll have the spatial sound, advanced, as we've talked about before, where you can set the bit rate, enable audio enhancements, which may be part of the spatial sound. I don't know. Moving on, your levels, which is something we've shown that, over here, the various levels, okay? So that's the speakers setup. And as you see, it doesn't have everything that the console offers. Go to headphones now. Under there, under properties, we have the enhancements. And these offer bass boost, the virtualization, and the loudness equalization. So some things that are found in here, which I guess it doesn't matter that much. If this was much more important, the loudness equalization and bass boost and things like that. And the virtualization, you may not actually need some of those environments anyhow. But you have those enhancements. You have spatial sound. But anyways, the point being is I wanted to show you that there is options for your headphones that you can't find in the speakers from this menu. But if you use the software, you get the same options plus more. So that's why I find the software to be useful. I believe that the surround virtualization would work with the spatial sound hand in hand together. I think that's how that's supposed to work. But me personally, I think I just prefer having the Realtek audio software. But okay, so now that we've done all that, let's go and look at how we can download the software depending on what motherboard or what situation you might have. Sound card, onboard audio, etc. And then we can wrap this video up. Okay, let's look at the software now. If you have an MSI motherboard like I do, you can start there at the motherboard website. The onboard audio drivers, you grab those, download them. You could grab the audio drivers from your motherboard manufacturer website like I just did there. Same difference for my girlfriend's computer with the Gigabyte motherboard, right? We'll go to the Gigabyte website for her motherboard, look for her specific motherboard, okay? Now, that being said, if you wanted the Realtek drivers and, I don't know, for whatever reason, you couldn't find them on the motherboard manufacturer website, whatever the case may be, you couldn't find them that way. So put in Realtek audio software and you'll see the very first one at the top. You go there. Now, here's the thing. It goes up to Windows 10, but it'll technically work with Windows 11 as well. All right, so you want the top one. Now, this does say driver only, and I guess that's the little caveat. My assumption is that this is just going to update the audio driver in Windows only and not provide any of this, right? And that kind of sucks. But I don't know what it would provide in the Windows software in a sense of what we were just looking at. Maybe there would be more options that aren't there right now. For example, I don't know. Now, that being said, you go over here. This is the software that apparently is like this panel. That's what I'm guessing is it just reintegrates this back into the driver. But it says beta, and I don't know. Maybe that matters. Maybe it doesn't. But at least the date isn't terribly old, you know. I see that you can, if you have a Dell computer, it looks like you could download it from there. I'm not so sure that I would take it from this place, driver support. I've never even heard of that. Softonic, I have heard of them, but sometimes, you know, downloading stuff on the internet, you know, it could be sketchy. But that's why, you know, I would just go with this one. Thank you for watching and sticking through this whole video. We just covered a whole lot of things, from speakers to the driver software to Windows' own audio software. I do have other content coming soon. So I have like a backlog of things that I've been trying to get to for a while now. For example, a couple builds I've done and things like that. So hopefully you enjoy that kind of content. And again, thank you for sticking around and watching the video. A little bit from the GN channel here.
Thanks, Steve.